Hey friends, welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is Kayleen, the comma chameleon Williams, and Ellen, the cutter Campbell. We're three editors on a journey to learn more about writing with you, the audience, so thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about PerfectIt, a tool authors, editors, and companies use to clean their copy. Our guest developed the original version of PerfectIt and now runs the company's sales, marketing, and customer support. As PerfectIt CEO, he's the jack of all trades and master of being awesome. Daniel Heuman, welcome to the show.
Yay. Thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
Now, first question, did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, you aced it. Most people don't.
Good job, Lauren.
And second question, how is everyone doing as we shelter in place?
How's everyone doing? Oh, I wonder how to answer that one because, I'm in that really, really fortunate category, but I'm in New York and lost, I'm sure that, people listening, someone's probably lost someone and, so many friends out of work and I'm in that really nice place where I've been lucky so far. And I feel like if I say something positive, that's the worst thing I could possibly say on air.
Knock on wood.
Gotcha.
Surviving.
There we go. Knock on it. That's what I wanted to say. Yes, exactly.
Well, we are very happy that you're doing great. Happy that you're sharing your time with us. Keeleen, how are you doing?
I'm surviving. Yeah. We just got word that lockdown's going on until through the end of April, which means I still don't have a day job. So I'm just doing what I can.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen?
My life has changed very little. Like Daniel, I'm very fortunate. My daughter's mother-in-law is positive. She's an ER nurse, so that was probably inevitable. But she hasn't been affected too bad by it. I mean, she's up and about basically. But I'm very lucky.
Yeah, and we're all blessed with the Keystroke medium community. We've seen posts on the chat, people encouraging each other, people trying to lift each other up, and we're just thankful for each and every member of you who's out there in the audience listening. We're thankful, and we pray that you're doing well and you'll continue to do well. And thanks for sharing your time with us tonight and joining the show. So Dan, let's talk a little bit about PerfectIt. Where did the idea for PerfectIt come from?
So my background was far from everything I'm doing now. I was an economist. And when you're an economic researcher, you write a lot of reports and you write a lot of proposals. And when you get to the end of every report and every proposal, you do the exact same thing every single time. You make sure that you got the client's name right. You make sure that you hyphenated words consistently. Those two things come together. If you're doing work for Formula One, is that formula space one? Is the one spelled out? Is the one a number? Is there a hyphen somewhere in there? Or is it F1? There are all these questions that would keep coming up on every single report. And that was my, oh my God, there must be a better way moment.
Nice. Yeah, as an editor, that is definitely something that I know each of us run into. It's like, okay, they used it this way, they used it that way. Got to pick one. Stick with one.
I don't worry about it. I always go with whatever they chose first, and then I run PerfectIt.
There you go.
There you go. That's smart. The hard work way of doing it is doing what I've been doing on Word because I do not have PerfectIt. I have a 2-page document filled with spellings of words that my lovely client that I love very much mixes up, and I keep on checking and rechecking and rechecking. So I've started to make a list. But it sounds like I could take that list and stick it in your program, and then your program would do the work for me.
Exactly. So the thing about the story of having that moment is that idea fell apart completely. That I got worked to get this product to market, assumed that everyone would be like me, and that the audience would be consultants and people doing reports and proposals, and went to market in 2009, and in the first 9 months racked up a big enough loss that it was pretty much on its last legs. There was no way this product was ever going to work, was ever going to get anywhere. was selling mainly through Google AdWords. That was not a good decision. And it was only in sheer desperation, having exhausted every other route that I thought the product might go down, that I started one by one. I'll just try copy editors. I would never be arrogant enough to think I could design a product for editors, because I've not been one. I didn't know that market at that time. And suddenly, even writing cold emails, I started getting replies. Like, the response was so different, and not everyone replies, because you're writing cold emails about a software product. That's never going to be more than 1 in 10, but 1 in 10 is really good for that.
Yeah,
and
huge.
Yeah, right. And to get personal replies from people that are saying, "Oh, this is different. This is interesting." I got exactly the kind of reaction that you're describing, and suddenly that changed the product completely. That it found its audience, and then we started getting feedback, because it had never occurred to me that someone would work with more than one style guide. Why would that possibly? I didn't know I was a consultant.
You're a fabulous consultant. You're our hero consultant.
Thank you. Yeah, so you start getting all this feedback, like it needs to work with multiple styles. We don't just work with one style. And when the product found its audience so clearly, that was the case of, okay, these people are telling, everyone else is ignoring me. This audience loves it. We're just going to build it for this audience. So it became very much the parallel I like to think about is the one with, I don't really know if this is true or not, but Nike like to say that they design their product for athletes and they don't care about anyone else. Yeah, exactly. I bet they do. But you can see the point that they're making, which is that if they create the best shoes for tennis players, then everyone else is going to want them too, and other people want to emulate and write the best. And if we can do a product for professional editors, then that's going to be useful to a wider audience actually beyond that. So it's kind of under their guidance that nowadays it actually does sell to all these other audiences. And we do have a large contingent that are proposal writers and medical writers and that kind of thing. But the root of it all is just editors responding, and it's been so designed for them. So to go all the way back and answer your question, which is, yeah, it's going to come in and it's going to look at any document and it's going to find all the little consistency issues. And it has no idea what's right and what's wrong. It is completely, in this state of AI software, it is completely stupid software. It does not know whether
you decide.
That's it. This might be an error. This is really hard to spot. We don't know. And that's perfect for professional editors who don't want to be stuck with products that are wrong most of the time.
Right.
They want the really difficult ones. Show me those and let me make a judgment.
Yeah.
I had a phone call yesterday from a guy who's currently an English teacher. He's a U.S. veteran, and he wants to be an editor. So he knows nothing yet about being the editor. He's on the path. He's on the way. How could a product like this help a gentleman like that who wants to become the best editor he can be?
What a great question. But you know what? I'm going to pass that one. I'm going to answer that in turn. But I'm going to start by saying that I should not be the one to answer that. Because, yeah.
He's honest, guys.
No, it's not that.
Can't get any better than that.
It's not that I'm honest. It's more that I think the most important thing for that editor who's starting on their journey is probably not the software. That can't be where we begin our answer. Yes, I'd love to chime in on this one, but I'd love for one of the editors on this call to answer it first, because where for them to begin, and the software might be part of the answer, but it's not the most important thing, is it?
No.
That's true.
Because I'm the newest editor out of all three of us here. So I would say, had I first known about PerfectIt when I was jumping in, seriously starting to edit, I probably would have no idea really what to even do with it, because I hadn't gotten into manuscripts enough to really know what to look for. So by what you're saying, it's dumping a document in there, it's showing you errors, but you need to at least have some understanding of what those errors are going to mean to you, because it's not going to tell you. So yeah, I guess, get in some edits first, get your sea legs, get your writing legs in, and then start adding that tool and see how it can, bolster your work.
What galls me is that why does everybody think that they can be an editor? Why does everybody think that that's easy and that's something that they can do? I mean, I see countless well, not, I could probably have counted them if I started at the beginning when I was starting, but I mean, so many people come to me and say, well, I've already had this through 3 editors and it's just, I don't know. And you look at it and you're thinking, what in the name of all that's holy happened to this document, you know? And what did you pay for? What kind of an editor did you take this to? A copy or a video editor, or you know what?
And
So I mean, there's a lot of people seem to think that editing is something that anybody can do, and it's just not. I don't care what software you have.
I couldn't do it. There's no way I could be an editor. I mean, it takes 2 skills, which I'm just terrible at. It takes patience and it involves people skills. And on both, I'm just failing completely.
That's not true. You've done
Your people skills are terrific.
Thank you.
And if they're not, you're faking it fantabulously, man.
Thank you. But I assure you, like this, but genuinely, the skill in the people skills involved in being an editor, giving someone feedback on their work and doing that in a way that they'll listen to, and working with them and giving them the space to be their best artist self. Like that's a huge responsibility. That's really, really hard. And I would just be wrong. I'd be one of those sort of pedants who's sitting there, as indeed the software is kind of pedantic. It's written for people. It's written by a pedant for pedants.
Yes, it's charming. It's charmingly pedantic.
That's like saying that like a carpenter built a tool for carpenters. You know, this is exactly what we want. And then you had feedback from other carpenters who helped you to perfect this tool and make it even more useful for carpenters.
And the other carpenters are just way better at working at the wood than I am.
That's true. Yeah.
And there are different levels of, strengths, especially like all the different levels in editing, and especially for the authors out there who might be thinking this could be useful tool that I could maybe run through before I send it to my editor. Is this something I could use?
Mm-hmm.
Try it out if you feel like at the end of the show that you want to give it a try. But yeah, it definitely seems like it's one of those things where your skill level may impact the overall benefit you're going to get from it. But certainly the more you use it, just like with any skill, any craft, hopefully the better you'll get.
And I'll prove how little I know here by getting none of the vocabulary right. But let's split that edit out into a couple of parts. Let's talk about that edit as being partly a copy edit and partly being a more substantive look. And where does this fit in that? And what are the most important skills for your friend to learn? I would say that the substantive side is really challenging. It's really difficult, and I would start with some classes. I think all the different editing associations have different kinds of training that they run. I think that would be a great place to begin. How do you become the best substantive editor that you can be? How do you learn to work with an author? And then on the copy edit side, exactly what Eileen said, just like this is where the PerfectIt can fit in. This is where you could, if you're a writer, you can use it before it goes to the editor. If you're an editor, you need to clean up a document, it's fitting into that part of the process. But it's by no means where I'd begin on any element of a brand new editor.
So we've talked about how it can help an editor make sure that using a style guide is applied consistently through a manuscript. Ellen, can you explain what that means and how you use PerfectIt to do that?
No, not really, because I just run PerfectIt for the consistency check.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm straight up Chicago most of the time, which is very rare, unless the author has supplied a style guide of their own. I just assume everybody's Chicago and I go with that.
Right, because we're in America, so American publishers use Chicago. It's hard. Go ahead.
I'm American. I use Chicago.
But can we rephrase that question to focus more on the consistency side that you do with it? Because that's what I think would be really interesting. I don't think PerfectIt's not going to, it can't magically enforce Chicago style, but you're using it to help on some of that. And how do you do that?
I click the button that says launch PerfectIt and I let it go. I come back 45 minutes later.
So,
it's usually done.
So what does it look like when it goes?
I've got this ready to launch. Let me launch it and we'll come back to it because it takes it a few minutes to go through things.
Okay.
Do you want to do it? I mean, I don't know if I can share a screen. I have a kind of a probably a faster setup. Are you PerfectIt Cloud or PerfectIt 4?
Yeah, I PerfectIt Cloud. I'm on a Mac, and I have a bone to pick with you about that, by the way. Go ahead.
Yes, go for it. But it will be, if you want to do a demo or something, it'll be a little bit faster on PC. Or do you want to get it started and we can switch? You know how to video share, and I don't. So hey.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will. Yeah, I have to log in. I didn't even realize I was logged out. No, how come it took so long to get it for Mac users?
It is an extraordinarily complex thing. So first, Microsoft had to invent the technology we use. Let's just start with that point.
Okay, so it's Microsoft's fault. I can.
It's totally Microsoft's fault. We know most things are that, right? We say as we use Microsoft software to connect or something, probably some level along the way. The Mac, the original product was done. It was all PC programming languages, and it took Microsoft in Office 2016 to build a completely new way of interacting with MS Office. And we were one of the first to really do a proper full-scale add-in using that new technology. And even now, the technology is not fully developed up, which is, well, I'll continue to blame Microsoft for woes on the Mac.
I don't blame you. I'm not a Mac user. I would rather, use it as a door stopper, but no offense, Mac users. Sorry.
Do you want me to share a screen? Because I now actually see the button there. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I've got it set up on my second screen, but I've lost the Google lost the permission to.
Darn Google.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Daniel.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, we'll pop you up big.
Let me see if I can do the application window, and we'll see if that works.
We get interactions today, guys. Get full
There we
screen
go.
share.
You got me staring, looking like an absolute idiot, trying to figure out how to use a basic system. Is this a software guy who doesn't know how to run software? Yeah, that's him. Let me try.
You're a consultant.
There we go. If I just do screen and let's do this one. How's that?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so really easy to use. Did a very brave thing. I decided to run PerfectIt recently on my thesis, which is a long time ago. I'm an old man, and what you do is you run it from Microsoft Word. You click launch PerfectIt, and like Ellen said, it's just that big start button. And if you're running on the PC, it's going to be really fast. On a Mac, it's going to depend on the document, and it's going to depend on your upload speed. It can also be really fast on a Mac if the document's not too big, and if you've got a fast upload. So what PerfectIt does, let's zoom in a little bit on this side so you can actually see what we're looking at, hopefully. PerfectIt is completely different to any spelling or grammar check. What it says here is it's looking at hyphenation of phrases. It says a phrase appears with and without a hyphen. And the phrase it's found is gift giving. And it's found two times where gift giving has a space, and 4 times where gift giving has a hyphen. Like I said, PerfectIt, stupid software. It doesn't know what's right. Is it supposed to be gift giving space or hyphenated, or does it depend on the context? Is it adjectival? Is it a noun? It seems like the preference of younger Daniel was to go with a hyphen. So why is this not hyphenated? There's no good reason. Let's click fix. And how about this one? Also no good reason. Let's click fix.
That's actually really cool. I didn't realize that it was a Word like plugin. So I don't even have to switch to a different program. It's all within there.
Yeah.
And that was like super easy. You're just like, yeah, all of that's supposed to be this. Fix. That is really cool.
But every time I use a program like this, I want to be the one to decide if it's right or not.
Exactly.
Merriam-Webster, and if it's a verb, it might be hyphenated, and if it's a noun, it might be 2 words and separate, and one's right and one's wrong. So I need to make the decision myself, and if the program is making that choice for me, the program is so often wrong. So I'd rather go with a program that does not make the choice, but just alerts me to a potential problem.
Exactly. That's what I think is so cool, because then you can just go in and use your brain, make the choice.
That's precisely the idea. So I have no idea which is right, socio-cultural with a hyphen or socio-cultural closed.
It's closed.
Oh yeah, it's a straight up
I
answer.
go back and take that hyphen out before I die.
Listen to Ellen. She's the always listen
Awesome.
to Ellen.
But yeah, what the software is pushing you to do is to check each location. it doesn't know. I mean, what if it were a quote? What if it were a title in a reference? Is there any reason why it might be a hyphen in some places? Like, I mean, those two would be the obvious ones.
No.
Fair.
It's a compound. It should be closed.
So we close it up. We check each location. We double check just in case, and we click fix. There is a fix all if you are as confident as Ellen, but I am not. So I'm just going to go through one by one, and you know, it goes through these. I'm not going to do any more hyphens for you here, and I'll try. I'm very conscious that that we have audio listeners. What we're seeing next is it says a word is spelled in 2 different ways, and it has. Oh, this is great. We're going to get something wrong probably. So it has the word analyzes and analyzed, and it's picking up what it thinks are US and UK differences. It wants to see, did you use analyze with a Z in one place and an S in another? But let's look closely at what we see. We have all these places where analyzed is used with a Z. We've got 5 locations. And then we have one where we thinks it finds the word analyze with an S, but it's not. It's analyses. And that word is completely different. And if we were just to blindly click fix, this document would not make any sense.
Right.
So the whole entire document
analyze do exist.
If you're using Word and you're doing a find and replace, then you could easily insert error by using.
Right, exactly. Our number one rival is not another proofreading software program. It's find and replace. And the number one thing that goes wrong is exactly what you said, that people just, you know, blindly click replace, replace all, and all the horrible things that happens. The images, you chase the word mage, and it becomes iWizard.
Yep, that is very true. Yeah, if you're an author and you haven't done a whole lot of editing, or I see we've got a couple of editors in the chat. Hello to you guys. If you're new at editing, you might be asking yourself, hyphens, why does this really matter? Some weeks it feels like half of my job and half of my time spent is looking up. Is it 2 words? Is it hyphenated? Is it 1?
Is it compound?
The kneecap somebody the other day for hyphens.
And it's important also for anyone who is doing their own work, their own book, because you don't want your editor to be spending all their time on those questions. And an editor who's looking at a sample of your work and sees things that are inconsistent and sees things that are untidy is one that has to charge a lot more than one who is presented with very clean copy that's had this sort of check done to it. You get the most from your editor, and potentially you even bring down the cost of it.
Now, Ellen, at what stage in the editing process do you use a program like PerfectIt?
At the very end. I always do it at the very end because you're going to have artifacts of editing probably and possibly from the author with double spaces and spaces at the end of paragraphs and things like that. Which if you do it in the beginning, you may solve your consistency problems, but you're not going to get the benefit of the program in terms of stripping out things that shouldn't be there.
So this is almost like the for you, this could be put on Amazon tomorrow. Let's just run a PerfectIt real quick.
I don't understand what you just said to me.
So this manuscript could be published on Amazon right now. So let's just run a PerfectIt real quick.
Yes. I'm sorry. I don't.
No worries. I'm barely here. I'm zoning in.
But you're very much coming at that from Ellen's perspective, where she's already the editor and it's the very last step. That's not an introduction for someone else to skip an editor and put this straight up on Amazon with PerfectIt, because that would be a very, very bad idea. If
you can afford it, if you can figure out, a lot of editors do have payment plans that they'll work with you. Definitely talk with your editor, get a sample, ask them, hey, what's your recommendation on, what sort of edit, what's that going to cost? Talk to a few, get a few different interpretations and figure out which one's going to be the best for you. And yeah, definitely for an author out there, if you're going to run a PerfectIt in that way, I mean, that would be like something for my own writing. I have already edited it gone through it. It's ready to go to one of my editors. Maybe I'll run a PerfectIt and make their job just a little bit easier. Not that I'm going to catch everything, not that I might be able to make every decision, but hey, I could be like, hey, you know, I ran a PerfectIt and I found all these things that should or should not be dashes. I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. That could be a huge help and an aid to an editor, because now, you know, they're going to be aware of it while they're reading through it, and you know, yeah. As I ramble.
This is an invaluable tool for right at the end, right?
Yes.
You go through the manuscript, you look at it so carefully, you fix all this stuff, but you're using a program, you know, Word, tracking changes or whatever. You're using a program to make those changes. And then there's another human, the author, who goes through and accepts or rejects. But sometimes in that process of accepting and rejecting, you can get extra spaces, you can get a repeated the, and then you get the manuscript back. It's back on your laptop. You're going through again. Your eyes might skip over something. It happens to all of us.
Yep.
Especially the more you know a book and the closer you are with it, the more you're likely to kind of skip over that. But a program like this won't.
Yeah, it sees what's there. But I would say that there are other people who do it the other way around. I know when I designed it, I did it with the perspective of, yeah, this was meant as a final check. But I never answer when people ask me, you know, when should it be run? Because the argument for running it at the beginning is people like to get familiar with the document. It's a really good way of finding out the number of issues, the kind of issues that are going to come up. And I like at the end because, well, you know, we don't talk about this, but it's possible that editors make mistakes themselves.
I admit it. I freely admit that I make mistakes.
And if
you know, you think you got that enter taken out, you've got the track changes on, and it's not actually taken out. You end up with a big extra enter space. It happens.
Or you can be so good that you correct things and suddenly the document is inconsistent because the original one didn't have it quite that good. And so you end up with these little inconsistencies. And if you want your work to, you know, actually be its best, having it at the end is useful for that reason. So beginning or the end, some people run both.
And it might save you time during the editing process if you run it first and then it just
and headspace too. Exactly. If you get some of that stuff out of the way and you want to focus on a substantive read, on paying attention to which character is doing what and why, and what's really going on in this work and what's the author trying to say, well then absolutely, like let's not be spending our time focused on whether the word sociocultural has a hyphen or not.
Yeah. All right, well, in a minute, we're going to ask Daniel about some more PerfectIt's features, but first, we're going to do a quick book spotlight of the week.
Spotlight! This week is on The Elements of Style by William Strunk Jr. and E.B. White. The Elements of Style, 1918, by William Strunk Jr. is an American English writing style guide. It is the best-known, most influential perspective treatment of English grammar and usage, and often is required reading and usage in U.S. high school and university composition classes. This edition of The Elements of Style details 8 elementary rules of usage, 10 elementary principles of composition, a few matters of form, and a list of commonly misused words and expressions. Basically, it's the writer's handbook that every American writer needs to read. So, get it while it's hot, or doom.
Of doom. You didn't sell me that time, Kayleen.
Of doom.
Thank you.
I love it.
So, how many years will it be before we can take Strunk and White's book and just put it into PerfectIt and let PerfectIt apply the principles of the book to a manuscript?
Oh, I love it. I love it. We're gonna find people have found enough issues with Strunk and White, and everyone has their opinion of Strunk and White. If PerfectIt can be added to that list, that would just make me very happy.
All right, so we'll maybe one day get to the point where PerfectIt can take Elements of Style and apply it to your book. We might not be there quite yet.
Selectively.
Do.
I think we're talking full on cage fight. It's PerfectIt versus versus Strunk and White. Everyone likes to bash it. We'll pile in.
Why not?
Well, what else in that cage fight? What are some of the other programs? Like, how does your program compare to the other programs out there? What makes yours distinct?
So we're just really different to what everyone else is trying to do. we are, as I said, the number one, people ask what PerfectIt is, and unfortunately, I seem to define it in the negative. We are not a spelling and grammar check. Well, that's what everything else is doing. And our typical customers are the customers that don't. I use spelling and grammar check. Lots of people will use spelling and grammar check. We have lots of customers who like to have the belts and braces approach and want as many things checking their text as possible. But we also appeal to the kind of people who get fed up with their spelling and grammar checks because they're wrong so often. It was more true 5 years ago. That technology has got a lot better. Silently, quietly has got a lot better. But that kind of person who sees how often spelling and grammar checkers don't get things right and is looking for that higher level of, no, we've got those things. We've listened to them. Let's find these other little small mistakes. So I don't think there's anything that's really doing what PerfectIt does in that sense. There's nothing else that's looking really exclusively at consistency mistakes. There's very little else that's available to create your own style, where you build in, your house style, your custom preferences, and the kind of thing that does that is in the $10,000 plus enterprise market where people customize for your company, and that's not our audience. Our audience is, freelance proofreaders and editors.
So I do very have a question for like the fantasy author, some of the sci-fi author. They have very odd words, very unique words. Are those things that PerfectIt picks up? Like, hey, you have Ragnarok and you have Raznaran. They're sort of similar. Are they supposed to be, or are they different? Or can we actually input those words? Does it run off of Word that way as far as the dictionary?
Yes.
Awesome.
What we want to do is we want to make that feature clearer. So at the moment, it's really hard to see that PerfectIt does that. But what we designed it for was, the word's going to escape me, transliteration. It's a reason why that word keeps escaping me. Like I got it under pressure. I got it. We designed it for transliteration so that if there are two really similar words, you can put the version that you want in, and it will look for things that are really close around it. Great if you are inventing alien species, different names of different battle cruisers or whatever it might be that's traveling the stars, or Middle Earth, as case may be. It's kind of a tricky feature to use because what we want to do in time is we want to mark that out and call it names and organizations or names and brands. And then everyone would understand what we're doing because, as I said, we designed this particular feature for transliteration and then realized, actually, there's this much more obvious use. Very, very small percentage of people care about transliteration. A very large percentage care about getting names right. So we're looking into that. We've tried, even if we really go to town on this, we sat down with the big book of baby names. Could we make it try and do those consistently? That turns out to be harder. The big book of baby names is a very big book. So we haven't cracked that one. We haven't made it easy, but fundamentally the feature is there. It's in the style sheet editor, sort of the custom features. It's PC only, but there's a check called similar words, and what you do is you enter the name that you want to be the character's name, or the starship's name, or the dragon's name, and it will look for anything close to that and see. Hang on, did you get the name right? Are you sure?
You slipped an I in that one.
Right.
It happens so
often.
Is
the second K capitalized?
Yep.
That's something I've fixed, I think, 5 times this week on a manuscript. It's just, the name was so close, but one letter off makes it wrong. But I'm relying on myself to do that, so I might have missed some. There might be more there that I missed. I'm going to look right after this.
And this is gonna highlight every single one of those. Hey, this one has an L. What's with your te? It's supposed to be a the.
Yeah. I recommend PerfectIt. It's really good at doing that for you, Lauren.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe I've recommended that in the past.
All right, editors out there, clearly we all need to be getting comfy and cozy with PerfectIt in our ways.
It just keeps you from looking stupid, which is I think that's a worthy goal to have, to not look stupid in your professional life.
One editor said to me recently, it was they wanted a selling point, and they said it's the embarrassment lasts a lifetime.
And those 1-star reviews are so hard to get off Amazon if they ever do come down.
I was saying we wrote an article for specifically with self-publishing authors in mind, and it was and the first or second paragraph is exactly that. It's like, what if people are going to attack you on Amazon, let's at least make them attack you for your ideas, your substance, your story. Let's not give them the easy things with the typos. We don't need those reviews.
Oh, the horrors.
So what are some other cool things that PerfectIt can do?
We like to dig deep.
Absolutely. We haven't talked about acronym checking. I don't know how interesting that one is going to be to all the listeners, but it's one of the coolest things, I think. And it's the one that led me to have what I consider to be my only kind of Steve Jobs moment. So PerfectIt does its best to find every acronym in a document, and it will do its best to link those to every definition. And when you pull those out, there's all sorts of interesting things you can figure out, like, have you used the acronym before you've defined it? Or have you defined it in a whole bunch of places this exact same way? Or even worse, have you used an acronym for 2 completely different definitions? In my consultant days, that was ITT is Invitation to Tender and International Trade Team. Very, very confusing document if you use it for both.
Yeah.
The most obvious one is, have you defined it at all? Really easy mistake to make if you're doing a document where you're familiar with the material. You just assume your reader is. Actually, no, doesn't work like that. So it'll point all those things out, which is kind of an almost magical feature. But that wasn't the Steve Jobs moment. The Steve Jobs moment was, I was at a conference and I showed the final bit of that, which is where you can click a button and it produces the table of acronyms. And it does it like that.
Wow.
And I got a room that acted just the way you did. They all just gasped. And I wish I had.
I spend my human time making those because audience members, raise your hand if you're a military science fiction writer. About half the people in our audience just raise their hands. And we use
my goodness, the acronyms.
And as the editor, we're checking those acronyms. We're making sure they're used consistently. We're making sure they're defined, because those are things that we easily forget to do. And now I'm finding out that all of those hours I could have been eating ice cream or something and not doing that because a program could have done it for me.
And also, like, on top of that, one of our acronyms in my co-write is CDB, right? And there are so many times that I've found CBD, and I keep having to check it, and then I'll read through it, and then I'm like doing a proofread. I'm like, crap, I missed that one. They just go perfect it and be like, haha, got you, little thing.
Never sweat your CBD again.
Exactly.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
The other really cool thing, I guess, it's worth mentioning is maybe not a thing, but one of our biggest audience, and we now managed to get our minds off of current crisis for a solid half an hour there. That was awesome. I'm afraid I'm going to bring it right the way back. One of the things that's really cool is that our audience includes a lot of medical writers. We are suppliers to 5 of the top 10 global pharmaceutical firms.
Nice.
Which 2 months ago, that was like, we would never mentioned that. People hated those companies, and now it's kind of a significant thing that we're in these spaces with all the companies that are working on testing and doing submissions is where they use PerfectIt. So if you're submitting a vaccine submission to the FDA or the EMA, PerfectIt is just a tool of choice, because those submissions are incredibly complicated documents. Those writers are working under an extraordinary amount of stress. They were working under an extraordinary amount of stress when they discovered PerfectIt 5 years ago, never mind now what they're dealing with. So for us, just a really, really cool thing is to be in that space and to have our work have that meaning. So for me, people kept asking, what are you doing with your life? Like, you're going to be the hyphenation guy? Is that your thing? And my answer was yes. Actually, I think that's quite significant.
Tell them you're making my life easier.
Right. And that was the next stage of it, was that if we can help people who are producing art and producing science, and we can make those people's lives a little bit easier, that actually is a significant thing. And it's not something I would joke about. And it went further when we saw that Ebola is now curable. We're talking current thing, and okay, we haven't got a cure for that yet, but Ebola is curable in 90% of cases if you get there early enough now. And there are a couple of different drug companies that produce that. One of them uses PerfectIt. And just to know that we're a little bit involved, right? And that just gave it all meaning, and it's got even more meaning now. So for me, I guess it's not a feature as such, but to be helping people doing what they're doing, contributing in a little small way to science, a little small way to art, a little small way to medicine, that means the world to me as I do this.
Yay!
I find it. I mean, it when you very first describe it, it seems like such a simplistic tool. I mean, it is, but then at the same time, it's kind of not. It's just like, here's all the highlights of the things. Do with them as you will. But at the same time, it's those little things that our eye starts to miss. You miss the double space. You miss the extra period. You miss the... I just forgot the dang word for the... Like that. And then you have a thing.
Apostrophe.
Thank you. Oh my God. You miss an apostrophe in one of the words. Those tiny, tiny little things are so easy to overlook. And it's an unbiased extra set of eyes if you can train yourself how to use it. And I think that is fantastic.
Even better than unbiased, it's uncritical.
There you go. Uncritically unbiased. Here's the stuff.
Like, hey, I saw this. I don't know if it means anything, but I saw it and I should tell you. And you look pretty today.
And that's actually something we want to build on, that sense of what we found, what we think with this theory is that people respond differently when they hear something in software. That if you're in a company and it maybe doesn't, well, I think it applies in a bunch of places too, but certainly the corporate environment is one we're thinking of, that the editor comes up to you and corrects you, and suddenly your work is being threatened, and suddenly your status is being threatened. And no, I use the word chairman. I've used the word chairman for the last 40 years. It's fine. I'm not going to change it to chair or chairperson. How dare you? Who are you to question my work? When they see that in software and it says, consider chair or chairperson, it's not threatening their status. It's not threatening them. And that same person will click, yeah, sure. And then look at me. Look at me, all politically correct. I'm writing in a way that's acceptable for everyone. Everyone take a look at my work. And it's the presentation rather than the person's attitude. It's one of, as I said, go all of that. It's a very hard thing if you're an editor to get those things right and have people respond in the right way. With the software, it's uncritical. It's just telling you what it sees, and you can take the credit for its work.
Yeah. Now, Keelan, you brought up an interesting point. You mentioned that how long it takes to learn something. As a new author, feels like there's so much to learn. It can be overwhelming to even think about getting a program, putting it on your computer, and figuring out. Ellen, how long did it take you to navigate PerfectIt and start using it?
However long it took me to set up an account.
Oh, so it was like you just put it on your computer and just ran it, and you were using it?
Yeah. And that's me. That's me you're talking to. I mean, this is the... Oh my God.
Already has...
Yeah. I'm a non-technological person. Out of everybody we know, I'm like the least technologically savvy. So yeah, that's saying something. Yeah, I had no problems. I have one client that I can't run PerfectIt on his documents, but other than that, most of the time there's no issue. And I don't know why it won't run. It just won't run.
Well, you've got the customer support guy right here.
I know. I was pointedly looking at him with this. Why can't I edit my Canadian authors' documents?
Oh, hey, I'm going to blame Microsoft, right? That's the answer here.
But how come it's only him? Because I suspected. What's that program I hate? You guys help me.
For writing?
No. Oh shoot, Scrivener. I suspected Scrivener, but if you say it's Microsoft, I mean, I'll believe you.
Everyone blames Microsoft.
It's funny that you bring up Scrivener. We did have a question in the chat. Any plans to integrate with Scrivener?
Wow, very cool. Actually, I know that Scrivener is used in some really cool markets that people unexpected places. But integrating outside of Microsoft Office would just be anything outside would just be an enormous task. So yeah, I'll sit here and blame Microsoft while you do understand that my entire living and our company of 10 people, we are completely dependent on Microsoft, and hopefully no one's listening to this because, no, I'm kidding. What Microsoft actually does in the business is to make what we do possible is incredible. It is completely magic what's there. And yes, of course we complain because it's Microsoft. But the reality is the tech that our tech is relatively simple, I think. What they're doing to make our stuff possible is not at all simple. And so no one else has that. No, we don't have that capability to integrate in quite the same way to anything else. I've never looked at Scrivener, but an integration into any product is very, very hard. Microsoft is among the most accessible products there are.
I mean, it sounds like you would almost have to rebuild it from the ground up to just be for that, like Scrivener, for example. It would have to be completely rewritten to work in Scrivener.
Yeah, half of it has to be rewritten.
Well, there you
go. The bit in the back is fine. The bit in the front is what has to be customized for everyone. And we have never got to the point where we can integrate into anything other than Microsoft, because half is a big rewrite. It was essentially half to do even to get onto a Mac, and that was still in Microsoft. So that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
All right. So for authors out there who might not be tech savvy, you've got your beginning 5 chapters and your ending 5 chapters, and now you're going to gut the middle 30 and completely rewrite them. And you don't get to look at them ever again. So that's essentially what he has to do. So patience, young ones.
So
perhaps
export it, Frisbee, export it to Word, and then run it in Word, and then take it back to Scrivener.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And we haven't really talked about this yet, but the really cool thing, if you're doing that writing-wise, or if you're just doing that once, is that we have a 2-week free trial. So if you are working on a book, effectively, you've got a free book that you can check with PerfectIt, because you don't need, to put it into Word and to run it that one time, or to run it at the end of your book that you've spent a long time on. You can just go ahead and use the free trial. And when you do your second book, or then when the next one comes along, hopefully at that stage you want to buy the product. But for that first one, that's just a free run. So take it out of Scrivener, put it in Word, grab the free trial, and run it and see what you find.
I like that. Very good. If you're in the chat, go ahead and you have a question for Dan, go ahead and pop it in the chat, and we'll try to get to it.
And while you're doing that, let me just add in that PerfectIt is very affordable. He's not going to bankrupt you on your subscription. So yeah, and it's worth every penny.
So
what are the pennies?
It's $70 a year. There are a few wonderful professional societies out there, like ACES, the American Copy Editing Society, and Editorial Freelance Association, the EFA, that get a discount. But even if you're not a member of any of those, it's just $70 a year.
That's not bad at all. That's, I think, the cheapest out of like any editing software for a year that I've ever come across, actually.
I suspect that's right.
Oh, you guys, it's the funniest thing. Lauren and I were talking about editing software, and Daniel could hear us, but we couldn't see or hear him. So we're discussing exactly what we think about this program and that program, and he's like, "Can you hear me?" and then he told us. He told us, I heard all of that, and he's like, and I just wanted to say it. I think the same thing. It was great. You should have been there.
Oh,
the second time that's happened to me. That's the second time that's happened to me.
Here's a good question. Stephanie asking, are there frequent updates? Because I know there's a lot of programs out there that are updating so often. What's your dealio on that?
So it's funny. I probably read this to the exact opposite way to the way you do, because of course, as a consumer, every time the update thing comes up, I'm like, oh god, I got to update again. What a pain. But as a developer, it's like, I know how good those updates are. I know how important those updates are. So I feel like if the answer was, I wish we updated more than we do. We've got a whole bunch. We usually tell people to update like 3 or 4 times a year. We don't have like that pop-up that says update now, or there's a new update available. PerfectIt does not connect to the internet in any way, shape, or form. So, sorry, two versions. PC version does not connect to the internet. The cloud one, well, that's a cloud version. You understand that connects to the internet, right? Describing the PC one does not connect. Sorry, let's do the cloud one first. If you're on the cloud one, you're never going to notice an update because it's in the cloud. That's the wonder of that technology. When we update it, it's just automatically changed and improved, and we're releasing those updates, but those won't affect you. If you're on the PC one, it won't know that there's an update because it's not interacting with the internet. So, and we're not going to spam your inbox every time we release one, because let's say we do one every 2 months, something like that. We don't think you actually want to hear from us quite that often about updates because of what you just said. So we'll probably announce 2 or 3 updates per year, and they're probably more like 6 or 8.
So for the PC users, you take like these 4 updates. Hey, there's an update. I want to catch up.
Yeah, when it's worth saying. So we'll be fixing people's little bugs all the time, and we'll put up an update for them. But if you already got the program, you probably don't want to be bothered. Whereas when we release some new features, like we're going to do soon with those features about, taking advantage of how it's not critical, taking advantage of how you can kind of teach people a little bit by putting instructions in there, we will announce that one.
Here's another one from Rick Partlow. If it doesn't connect to the internet, why is it subscription rather than just a paid download?
We have to update it all the time still. So what you get when you get the subscription is you get both products. You get access to the PC one, you get access to the cloud one, and we have to update that either way. So what you're paying for is the fact that we are constantly improving the product. We need to keep it up to date in line with Microsoft. Even if we did nothing else, and we're doing a lot else, we're always building things in. But even if we did nothing else, we always have to keep it up to date with Microsoft. So they're gonna come up with things that affect the functioning of add-ins, and we need to be constantly doing that in the same way that you would for a cloud one. So it makes more sense. We did used to be permanent, perpetual license. We dropped the price a long way when we switched because we think that's the right way to handle that.
If I do have a problem that needs fixing and I contact customer support, how long is it going to take that customer support guy to get back to me?
The wonderful change there is maybe the last thing I put on the blog was something like, I put an article up called "What Could Be Better Than Personal Technical Support from the CEO?" Because back in September, thanks in part to the switch to subscriptions and having reliable, steady income that comes in, we were able to take a really important step. We were able to hire a dedicated customer support person, which makes a really big difference on your question. And it means the answer to my question is, what could be better than dedicated support from personal support from the CEO? The answer is anything. Literally anything would be better, because the last thing you want me doing is spending all my time jumping in and answering questions, telling people to restart their computer, which is what most of it is. Right? And
always restart first.
And that used to be my job. So yeah, we have Chris in our customer support team is now dedicated on that. We have very quick support, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Even when he was doing it, they had very quick support.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to restart my computer. I somehow had 2 subscriptions in the same computer, so we had to sort that out. Sorry.
Well, for the record, I contacted the CEO of PerfectIt on a Saturday morning, and I'm about coming on this podcast. And I think like 10 minutes later, he's like, yeah, sure, anytime, love to.
But you also tried messaging him today, and he didn't answer at all. So I don't know about the reliability of that guy's email and things.
That was Facebook.
It was Facebook. That is the problem. That was the issue.
All right. Rick also asked like different versions of Word. I think that goes with his last question about.
So essentially, but it's not. It's not just different versions of Word now. Word is itself being permanently updated. So Microsoft will come up with updates. I mean, how often Microsoft come up with updates because your whole computer is shut down while it applies them. Every time it's doing that, we need to make sure that PerfectIt is still compatible. So different versions of Word. Well, hey, that thing is called, it's branded Office 365 or Microsoft 365 now, or Word 2016 or Word 2019. But whichever one of those products you have, and Hint, they are all actually the same product. It is very confusing. Whichever version you're on, they're always being updated, and we need to be updating the product for that.
Makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
I'm excited. I don't know about y'all. I'm excited. Well, Ellen already uses it. So she's already excited, but I'm excited to try it, at least try the trial and see how it can make my life easier. Because I do, like Lauren, I spend so many hours. I'm just like, wait, okay, I need to make a note to go through and check this one word and make sure. And you're just sitting there and you're scanning, and then you scan it 5 times. Just
And miss 6 instances.
And then, yeah, it could save me 3 months of my life.
Yeah. Making your life better every day by giving you back your time.
Yeah, that's some of the nicest stuff that people have said to me over the years.
Yeah.
It's just about that people, we've had people come up at conferences and say, "Oh my God, thank you. Just this changed my life. I didn't set out to change anyone's life. I was trying to fix my little mistakes on proposals as a consultant. This changed your life." And it's because of what you just said. No one became an editor because what they really want to do is spend hours and hours checking consistency of hyphenation and capitalization. Became an editor because you care about stories and communication and helping people to get their message across. Not because you wanted to, was it government with a capital G or a single or a lowercase G?
All the things.
That is so much of our week, isn't it?
It really is. But no, it's an amazing product. I love your product.
Thank you.
I would not, if you couldn't make me give it up. I mean, it's really that useful to me, and I think it could be that useful to everybody if they would just try it. But
that's lovely to hear. Thank you.
I am no, and you're very popular. We talk about you get, not you personally, but PerfectIt gets talked about
I was
all the time in editing groups. What can you recommend to do? Blah blah blah. Oh, PerfectIt. I wouldn't even try to be an editor without PerfectIt. I mean, it's very popular. You've got a lot of really good feedback. I have never heard anything bad about PerfectIt.
We've heard things bad.
Well, I haven't.
No, it's some of the things that people say in those forums is incredible and meaningful. And I every time I come across those things, they mean a great deal. And it's wonderful, the reaction that we've had over the years. Thank you to everyone who's listening, who's been one of those people. It's just really, really appreciate it.
We say nice things behind your back.
All right, so we are coming to the end of the hour. So PerfectIt in and of itself seems like a very easy thing to at least jump in and start using. So how easy is it for, even Ellen can do it, man. How easy is it for our audience to find this magic of a program and download it themselves?
You're gonna Google PerfectIt. You're gonna click on the free trial for either you're gonna pick the cloud version or PerfectIt 4 for the PC version, and it's that easy. There's a get in the Office store for the cloud version. The PC version is a double click and install it, and then it's going to be in Word, and you're going to be up and running. It is really, really designed to get you to that wow moment, and where it's just making a difference quickly and make that easy to use and for you to get that benefit. And as I said, there's a free trial, so why not?
Yeah.
All right.
It's PerfectIt. One word. PerfectIt. PerfectIt. One word.
PerfectIt. Go click and find out now. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you say that you're not a people person, but you did fantastic.
Thank you so much. I know it's such a pleasure.
All the editors out there are probably just like bouncing in their seats, just like can't get it fast enough to take my money, right? It's that moment. That's what we're feeling. We hope our authors can get that feeling as well. And thank you guys for listening. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, ding the little bell. We really want to get to 1,000 subscribers this year. We want to bring you more content. We want to bring you all the content, all the words, all the time that we can. So let us know in the comments what you want to hear more of, who you might want to see, all those things. Be sure to check us out next time. We're going to talk about more reading, writing, and everything in between right here on Keystroke Mediums, The Writer's Journey. Good night, you guys.
Night.
Bye.